Putin proposes direct talks with Ukraine on May 15th without preconditions. Russian President Vladimir Putin on a Sunday proposed direct talks with Ukraine on May 15th in Istanbul that he said should be aimed at bringing a durable peace and eliminating the root causes of the war. Putin sent thousands of troops into Ukraine in February 2022, unleashing a war that has left hundreds of thousands of soldiers dead and triggering the gravest confrontation between Russia and the West since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. He said Russia was proposing direct talks with Ukraine in Istanbul in an attempt to eliminate the root causes of the conflict and to achieve the restoration of a long-term lasting peace rather than simply a pause for rearmament. We are proposing that Kyiv resume direct negotiations without any preconditions, Putin said from the Kremlin in the early hours of Sunday. We offer the Kyiv authorities to resume negotiations already on Thursday in Istanbul. Despite public and private pressure from US President Donald Trump and repeated warnings from European powers, Putin has offered few concessions towards ending the conflict. Putin said that he would speak to Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan later on Sunday about facilitating the talks, which he said could lead to a ceasefire. Our proposal, as they say, is on the table. The decision is now up to the Ukrainian authorities and their curators who are guided, it seems, by their personal political ambitions and not by the interest of their peoples. President Volodymyr Zelensky's office and Ukraine's foreign ministry did not immediately respond to Reuters' request for comment on the proposal. No ceasefire. Putin's proposal for direct talks with Ukraine came hours after major European powers demanded on a Saturday in Kyiv that Putin agreed to an unconditional 30-day ceasefire or face massive new sanctions. Putin dismissed what he said was the attempt by some European powers to lay down ultimatums. Russia, Putin said, had proposed several ceasefires, including a moratorium on striking energy facilities, an Easter ceasefire, and most recently the 72-hour truce during the celebrations marking 80 years since victory in World War II. Both Russia and Ukraine accused each other of violating the temporary truce protocols, including the May 8 to 10 ceasefire. On Sunday, Russia launched a drone attack on Kyiv and other parts of Ukraine, Ukrainian officials said. There were no immediate reports of injuries or damage. Putin said that he does not rule out that during his proposed talks in Turkey, both sides will agree on some new truces, a new ceasefire, but one that would be the first step towards a sustainable peace. Putin, whose forces have advanced over the past year, has stood firm in his conditions for ending the war. In June 2024, he said that Ukraine must officially drop its NATO ambitions and withdraw its troops from the entirety of the territory of 4 Ukrainian regions claimed by Russia. Russian officials have also proposed that the US recognize Russia's control over about 1/5 of Ukraine and demanded that Ukraine remains neutral, though Moscow has said it is not opposed to Kyiv's ambition to join the European Union. Putin specifically mentioned the 2022 draft deal which Russia and Ukraine negotiated shortly after the Russian invasion of February 2022. Under that draft, a copy of which Reuters has seen, Ukraine should agree to permanent neutrality in return for international security guarantees from the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council: Britain, China, France, Russia, and the United States. It was not Russia that broke off negotiations in 2022. It was Kyiv. Putin said, Russia is ready to negotiate without any preconditions. He thanked China, Brazil, African and Middle Eastern countries and the United States for their efforts to mediate. Trump, who says he wants to be remembered as peacemaker, has repeatedly said he wants to end the bloodbath of the Ukraine war, which his administration casts as a proxy war between the United States and Russia. Former US President Joe Biden, Western European leaders, and Ukraine cast the invasion as an imperial style land grab and repeatedly vowed to defeat Russian forces. Putin casts the war as a watershed moment in Moscow's relations with the West, which he says humiliated Russia after the Soviet Union fell in 1991 by enlarging NATO and encroaching on what he considers Moscow's sphere of influence, including Ukraine. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you, everyone. Bye.